Hello everyone and welcome back to my favourite place on earth, the MSI booth at Computex 2025. Now massive thank you to MSI for actually paying for our transport, paying for our hotel to actually bring us here so we can bring you this coverage. It's massively appreciated. And what a way to start. We've seen the 5090 before. This isn't new, but they've gone all out with this concept card. I don't know whether they're going to be bringing it out. Let me know what you guys think. This is a SUPRIM titanium edition of the 5090. It says don't touch. I actually thought I was going to knock it over then.
I'm a rebel.
But it does have a bit of texture to it, and because it's titanium, it's a more durable, it's a lighter material. I don't know whether it's going to affect the thermals, particularly with this card. I've heard someone said that it could do, but as I say, this is still at the concept stage. But essentially, we've said this before, but I will say it again. If you want the ultimate graphics card that probably won't be particularly cheap, then the 5090 SUPRIM Titanium Edition might need to be on your radar. I will be very excited to get this in for a review sample if they do make it. We've also got a few other concepts as well. This one's quite interesting. I haven't really seen anything like this before. This is called the Cyclone Visual OC, and we've actually got like a, well, you see my watch? You see that? Essentially, imagine one of those, but in the middle of this graphics card, and they're now swapping from aluminium to copper. Now, copper is a more expensive material, but it is very, very conductive, so it can give you better performance because you get better heat transfer from the GPU into the fins, and then obviously the fans can blow that away. This kind of takes me back. This almost looks like a graphics card from quite a long time ago, but I mean that in a great way because they are all starting to look quite similar. She's touching it. I don't believe it. She's breaking the rules. But yes, it's definitely a very interesting design. It's not really something I would have expected to see here. And the other thing as well is that whilst this is like a prototype and it is a concept, they said it can be mass produced. This isn't something that is going to take ages and, you know, is going to have to wait years and years for iterations. They could actually make this, or at least something very similar to this, if there was the demand for it. So I guess let MSI know down in the comment section below if this is something you'd be interested in. And then also the twin Frozr is back as well. So this is a 5060 Ti 16 gig version. And once again, the thing that's very interesting with this is that they are moving away from aluminium and they're adopting copper, which again has better conductivity and can give you better thermals, but it is going to be more expensive. So loads of different options here from MSI, and hopefully these will hit the market very, very soon, and you can let them know whether it's something you'd be interested in. And the other thing I will say, by the way, is that the MSI booth is always absolutely nuts, and we could do some really nice clean cuts as Carl watches the step there as he's filming very carefully. But I want you guys to see just how like crazy this show is and how crazy the MSI booth is. They are also launching, that was very loud, they're also launching the RTX 5080 in the Expert Edition. So there are some revisions this time, essentially as you would expect, just better airflow really, so you can actually get more air into the card, should give you better thermals. This is a 5080 version of the Expert, so this is kind of like their take, if you like, on the Founders Edition, but I love this. I think it really stands out, and obviously really is, like, if you're going for a bit of a different rig, if you're going to pair this with like some gold fans or something like that, you can get a system that looks really high-end and classic without the over-the-top RGB gamified everything. I will also add, by the way, whilst not brand new for the show, this is the first time I've actually seen the Inspire GPUs for the 5070 and the 5060 Ti. I like the fact that this is kind of like a mini version, but once again it kind of has that design language, but not exactly the same cooling solution as the Expert, but the same, as I say, like the look, if you like, of the cards. I think these are really neat, actually. Really, really neat.
I'm like a kid at Christmas here. It's amazing.
I also want to point out, actually, if I can nip in here, the smallest thing, almost certainly, on the booth, but actually something that's very important, I think, just across the industry, really. PCI Generation 5 SSDs, they're becoming easier to adopt, and the main change really that MSI are talking about here is that we have a brand new controller on this. So this is the Ryzen E28, and let's be honest, you might think that's a little bit boring, but the reason that it's not is because it's all about power consumption. So this controller can be up to 20% more power efficient, which means, look, you don't necessarily need a whacking great heatsink on it. Now, they will still be selling some that do have heatsinks on, and obviously you can, I suppose, get better performance if you are going to run into thermal problems, but the fact that you no longer need a huge heatsink on a PCI Generation 5 SSD and you can still get great speeds, I think is fantastic, because that's one of the reasons it was stopping me from using one. Cole, look, come through, it's crazy here, I wasn't lying, there's people with suitcases. Why is there a suitcase here? I don't understand, this show is so confusing. But the thing I've been waiting for ages is what's here. So this is a brand new motherboard. It looks fairly normal at first glance, but it's not, because this is a Project Zero AMD motherboard X870, and it's full-size ATX. I think actually the previous generation board, so it was B650E, was actually a micro ATX board, which was quite frustrating if you wanted to use this in a larger case, because obviously it wouldn't necessarily fit. So there's been a lot of Intel motherboards with a full-size ATX Project Zero form factor, but the fact that we now have one that is going to work with an AMD like X3D CPU, I think is fantastic. So obviously the real meat, if you like, is on the back, so all of the connections can go on the reverse, and then you put this in either MSI Project Zero case or any case that actually supports the form factor, and then obviously you can get a much cleaner build. So this is definitely a motherboard we'll be getting in for a review. And actually I realized as we were about to leave for a second, they've got a full motherboard built up inside this case. I'll be a little bit naughty and remove the glass and freak everyone out, but you can see what it looks like inside this chassis, and this chassis is also new. This is the Pano 130RPZ, and obviously the thing that clearly stands out here is the display. Now this doesn't actually come with this case, but it's kind of been specially built to accommodate that, if you like. I mean, I suppose you could put this in any case that actually does have the space for it. This is still prototype, so they're still working on like the finish and things, I believe, on it. But interesting enough, I mean, have a guess in the comments down below how much you think this display is going to cost, because it's not exactly particularly small. You can use this as a full secondary display as well, so essentially you can put anything really you want on this. But I would have said probably about £200, $200 or so, but they're actually aiming for a price of $119, which I think is very, very competitive, bearing in mind that you could essentially put anything on this and you can completely transform the look of your system. So very, very cool. Moving swiftly on, though, we have something else very, very interesting to me, and hopefully to you too, because as we know, micro ATX motherboards at the high end, they're not always all of the rage, but MSI said, no, we want to make one. So this is actually a B850M M Power. I mean, actually, I think it's just the one M. And Editor Carl says that M Power doesn't sound like a razor blade. I disagree. I think M Power makes it sound like it's like for shaving, and I haven't done that today, so that would have been arguably more useful. But for my future rig, we said last week actually, I used a X670E M-ATX motherboard, but it was very high-end, really geared towards overclocking, but we're not going to see a replacement for that. This could well be that motherboard, because this is all essentially geared about overclocking the CPU and the RAM, and that is why we only have 2 RAM slots on that, because that can give you better signal integrity, essentially, which when you're trying to overclock is obviously very, very important, while still having some very high-end features. We've got a M.2 slot on the back as well, so you're making full use of that M-ATX form factor. You get this little like overclocking extension card thing, which is essentially just a way of turning this on without having to press the button if you're going to do liquid nitrogen overclocking. I don't think most of us are going to be doing that, but nice to see that that option has been covered. And then also, good guy MSI, Carl's been knocked with a bag and he's freaking out, but he's doing very well here. He's almost knocked again. Crazy here. Something I really like to see from Good Guy MSI is what they're calling Pinsafe. So I don't know if you've ever done this before, but particularly on some recent motherboards, you'll be building it and then you're going to pick it up and then you'll get pricks with like a... You do, he's pulling a face. You get pricked by like this horrible spike on the back of the motherboard where they've like either used like solder joints or something like that. And the idea of MSI Pinsafe is just that you can essentially touch the back of it without hurting yourself, which is very, very annoying. And hopefully they're gonna like be able to bring this across to a lot of other products as well. This is kind of like showcasing their ease of building systems. So things like easy latch, getting into the M.2 slots without necessarily needing a screwdriver, things like that. MSI do want to make building a PC even easier, which is always nice to see. Now, if you guys have been following the channel for a while, and I'm sure you have, if you're not already subscribed by the way, make sure that you are so you don't miss any more of our Computex coverage and obviously full reviews of the stuff that we feature. But you all know, if you've been following for a while, that I'm a massive fan of monitors, and the way that they've come on over the last few years is incredible. When I started, it was basically just 1920 by 1200 was like the best that you got. And that was about it. 60 hertz. Today, MSI unveiled something different. This is a 500 hertz QD OLED monitor. Insane. I mean, who is ever going to need more than that? And it used to be the case of, well, you get a really high refresh rate, but you're compromising on features or you're compromising on the way that the image looks. This pretty much is going to be the end game monitor, really, for anyone that wants to play competitively or just a monitor for general use. It will do everything, really. And what they're calling with this particular monitor, one of the new features, is is their Care 3.0. So as we know, the weakness, if you like, with OLED monitors is that they're potentially more prone to something like burn-in. This has been getting better and better over the last few years, to the point where I'm not really that worried about it, but there are always things that can be done to make it better. Now, with the Care 3.0, not only do you have like the cleaning functions of the monitor, they've actually changed this now, so the mandatory refresh has gone from 16 hours to 24. But the thing that's really clever about this is that it has a sensor on the front, and it's not just a normal proximity sensor. It is a sensor that actually uses AI to detect when you're looking at the monitor, and then it will display the monitor, and when you leave, it will turn the monitor off. And this might not sound like such a big deal, but if you're using your monitor, especially for work or something where you're using it for hours at a time and you frequently get up, we've all done it before, put our headset on, we go make ourselves a cup of tea, we come back, and like the game's running in the background, all of that is obviously going to eat into the amount of time that your monitor has been used for. So by taking that out, it's going to mean that your monitor is going to last longer, and because it's not just a standard proximity sensor, it's not going to be triggered by things that aren't people. So very, very clever. And the price on this isn't even outrageous. This is going to be around about $899, I think, dollars when it comes out later in the year, which is very, very cool. But if you did also want to go for one that's a little bit cheaper to save more money, or you're not too fussed about that OLED Care feature, you can step down to this one that uses the same panel. It's still 500 Hz, so still going to be absolutely insane for gaming, for the way that it looks, fluidity, everything really. But you don't have that sensor at the bottom. So I guess just manually turn it off when you go make yourself a cup of tea if you want to save yourself $50 or so. Great to have different options, but really great to see the innovations here from MSI. But whilst I am personally extremely excited about everything OLED, if you want to go even faster, they've actually got a 600Hz TN esports monitor here, 1080p. So if you want to just pump as many FPS as possible into your display, we can now go as far as 600 Hz, which is pretty nuts. And they also have a 32-inch monitor. It's mini LED, and this is one of those dual mode ones as well. So if you want to go for a faster refresh rate, you can do that, or if you want to run it at the full 4K resolution but at a lower refresh rate, you get that flexibility. And because it's mini LED, not OLED, it's obviously going to be a little bit more accessible when it comes to price. Hang on a minute, guys, hang on a minute. Future Marcus here. Carl's been editing and he's gone,
You know you missed some of the products, right?
and I've gone,
Oh yeah.
because we saw some additional stuff at the MSI HQ that's here, but it was so busy that I couldn't see it, but it's actually cleared up a little bit now, so I can show you. So let's have a look at some of their motherboards that they're showing off. These are called the Edge TI, and as you can see, these are ITX boards and these are white. Now this is fantastic, not only if you want to do a white rig, but to be honest, if you're going for like a smaller or even like a silvery ITX case, obviously this is going to be great, but we've got some updated AMD boards, which I'm really excited about. We've got an X870 and a B850, so it's kind of covering you if you want to go for something that's a bit more affordable or something that has more features. But this is a good topic because it's like they hadn't thought about it. I said to them at their HQ on Sunday, why don't you just call them the AMD white and the Intel white? Because surely that's what's like people search for. So I don't mind the name Edge TI, but just call it the white range. But the other thing that's caught my eye, and certainly yours too, is this. It's not just any old 360 rad, but as you can see, it's got an absolutely huge display on this as well. So you can use this for so many different things. It's basically like a smartphone screen, I would imagine, the way that they've designed this. It's massive. And you can also have this in a couple of different orientations. So if you want to have this horizontal or vertical, you can do this. Obviously, it's going to depend on the exact case, the exact motherboard and things that you pair with this, because obviously you are always going to have like potential clearance issues. But if you can get this on, you can set it up and you can customize it pretty much however you want. I would say you could put your GPU and like CPU temps and things on there, but at this stage it's probably quite obvious you can do that. But the aim with this is that you can go a lot further beyond that and put some really exciting things on there, and it will also look good because it's not like a tiny low resolution display. Now, a good example of this in action is actually with this. Now, we saw this last year actually, or it might have been at CES this year. So this is still a prototype case that they're doing. So it's not quite finished, but this is supposed to be like an absolute unit, absolute behemoth of a case that's pretty much supposed to be end game. And I really like the color scheme on this because they're kind of going for like a gold premium look. You've got curved glass on this. You've also got like this metal piece on the top and on the bottom, and obviously this is not going to be an affordable $50 chassis, but if you want something that really is going to look absolutely epic and ultimate, then you can consider this. But once again, they're still asking for feedback on this, so if there's anything about this that you would want changed or anything you really like about it, obviously let them know. And you can also pair it with some of their displays that we showed you earlier. This one is in black. I assume that is going to be coming at some point, and then you can have like two side by side. But if you wanted to swap those out for additional fans or things, obviously you could do that. And I told you guys that there was so much I missed out. There's also this new cooler as well. And again, I think I saw like a preview of this at CES. This is going to be called the Core Liquid P13360, and once again you can see it's quite obvious with this what's different. Here we've got this display, but this is adopting more of a circular design, so don't be insulted by this MSI, but I think in a good way it looks like the new Nest thermostat. So it is very tempting to come up and spin it and change the temperature of your house.
I don't think it works like that.
But once again, if you want to have some cool information, some cool readouts on this, but you just want a different look and different design, because not everyone wants one of those rectangular displays. The whole point of that essentially is that you can get a larger display and you can put more things on there. But if you want something that's a bit more circular, you don't have to worry so much about compatibility. You just want to show readouts and things. That's going to be a pretty cool way of doing it. But then, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we've saved the best to last, because a surprise announcement actually is that there's a brand new MSI Claw 8, but this time with a Ryzen CPU. So this is a Ryzen Z2, and this obviously is the latest generation. So we've seen handhelds before, but I think this is the first one we've seen with this actually. I've been specifically told not to unplug it and pick it up.
But I don't care.
So you can see obviously in terms of the body and the way it looks, it's pretty similar, but the performance of this should be epic. I've actually been using a laptop device that has a similar chip inside it, and that's kind of been scaled down and put inside there, and I was amazed at the portable performance you can get from such a chip. So I am very, very excited to actually start testing this and seeing what games will work well on this, and obviously what the differences are between the Intel version and the one with AMD. But as I say, very, very excited. But I would love to hear your thoughts on everything from the booth. I mean, did anything catch your fancy? Was it a GPU? Was it the tiny SSD? Or was it the brand new Claw with the new Z2? Would love to hear your thoughts. Smash the like button if you enjoyed this. Get yourself subscribed. And again, once again, a massive thank you to MSI for actually paying to bring us out here, like travel, hotel, and maybe an Uber. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one.